welcome to our Q&A. Good morning to all those who are here. Welcome to our Q&A. This is where we answer questions about God. It's about God now, sort of, but God branched out in many ways. About City Church, about the sermon, and about anything to do with Christianity. Well, Christianity's intersection with the world, with the Bible, all of those things, all right? So I am okay, he's Francis.
I'll introduce myself.
Oh, yeah, introduce yourself.
My name is Francis.
The Francis that was disappointed in me, by the way. Just say. All right, and I'm Femi, okay? And so normally we'll do a maximum of 5 questions. We've already received a question via WhatsApp here. And so you can send there. And for the people who are here, if you have a question, Lola has a question. Hello, how are you? And I can't remember your name. No, don't say it. Gosh. One of the sweetest people. This is not. Don't say it. Don't say it. Ifeoluwa has a question. Sorry. Ifeoluwa has a question. Ibukun has a question. Obin has a question. Oh, it's finished. It's finished. Nobody can ask again. We have 4 questions and 1 question. I didn't say. Oh, Yona has a question. Oh, Yona's question. Okay. So let me read. Yona, Lola, don't. No. Let me read Yona's question. Yona, how are you? Well, good. All right. If you've gone through the desert experience and entered into a deeper place with God, but stop asking for the thing that took you there, is that necessarily evidence of cynicism? Is it okay to just move on from that thing and be willing to live without it? Good question. All right. There's a roving mic. Temida is going to, for the questions, Temida is going to come around. Don't hold the mic. He will hold the mic for you. Ifeoluwa.
Okay, so my question is in regards to miracles. I was reading a psalm earlier this week and how David was talking about God performing miracles amongst the Israelites. And for me personally, I don't think I've ever actually seen an actual miracle happen. So I'm just wondering why that may be, because I've spoken with people who have said, oh, God did this for them, they've seen this that happen, they've seen that happen. And for me, who has been a Christian for a while, I haven't seen an actual miracle. The thing is, I know I've gone through that whole desert experience where I've had a deepened knowledge of God, and I've asked God for things and I haven't necessarily seen them manifest. So I'm just wondering, why is it that some people may experience or see miracles happen and then for some others it's not really the same?
Wonderful question. Ibukun?
Okay, I'd like to read this scripture that formed the question. Romans 8:30. Having determined our destiny ahead of time, he called us to himself and transferred his perfect righteousness to everyone he called. And those who possess his perfect righteousness, he co-glorified with his son. So I know that there's a gist around predestination and everything, but reading it like this got me thinking, right? There are people who aren't born into Christian backgrounds, may never hear the gospel, may never be called, and their life ends. How does it all work that God, who knows the end, there are people that are in that situation, and I don't know, how does that work?
Wow. Some days I feel like the people, you guys in this church, you have no mercy whatsoever. I don't know how many calories I've burned today. If you thought I was shouting in the second service, you should have been in the first one. And then you now throw a question about predestination and I mean, show mercy. Have Lola. How many times did I call you? Be nice. You have 2 questions. Go ahead.
Okay, so my first question is, we're going through Corinthians. I talked about church discipline. We're fine with church discipline. Well, I'm fine with church discipline. There's a small Bible study group. But
In
that's
church.
besides the point. That's not part of the question.
Inside, I'm not part
Anyways,
of it. I wasn't okay.
so the question is, so it talks, the verse says, leave him onto like the to Satan for the purification of his heart, so that in the hopes that he will come back to the fold. Now, my question is, once that's happened, you've left them, maybe they've been excommunicated or they've been moved, pulled out. How can you check up what's the engagement? How can you check to see that they've been purified? I know the argument would be that, like the prodigal son, they should be able to come back. But then with human dynamics, there's still the whole what if I see them in the supermarket, can I say hi, but like, can I just be like checking up on you, but not trying to, what are the rules of engagement? And also not trying to make it seem like, I didn't agree with what church did. I'm just, so that's my first question. Second question is slightly more personal. So we've talked about, we've asked God for things and we didn't get to, we asked earnestly, we should still be able to go back to God and ask. I was wondering if either you or Francis can share if you've had situations where you ask God for something. You don't have to give us the cocoa, but like where you've asked God for something so earnestly you didn't get it, and how you were able to go back to God with the same level of earnestness that you did with the first time you didn't get your answer.
And I asked you nicely. You understood the question?
Well, I'm not answering any questions.
She said she called your name.
I know, but I'm not answering any of the questions.
You're not. No, you can't hear you.
I'm not answering any of the questions.
What are you doing here then?
Just for you. I'm just here to provide support. That's all.
Obina.
All right. Is there like a biblical stance on attending? Like, say you have friends that are in the LGBTQ community, and all that, attending like same-sex weddings, and then does that apply to like? That's like the easiest one. That's the easiest one.
So okay, let's even say it's the easiest one. That tells you about what this is. All right.
I'm not done. So like, how does that then apply to when we attend our friends' marriages that are Muslim, for example, or it's like the second or third wife, like that, yeah.
Okay. Where do we start? I don't even know. Any, mini, money, more. So, okay. Francis, which one are you taking now?
I can tell you when I'm taking.
Oh my gosh. Which one? Okay, start with the one you are taking. Okay, let me start with Ibukun Zone. Right? That's the one you want to take.
No, that's not.
So, Ibukun, yes. Okay, first of all, on the issue of predestination, here's what all Christians should be agreed on. Predestination is taught in the Bible. At least we've seen the word, right? You bring up the word because we see it. Now, the next thing we then say is Christians don't all agree on what predestination means. All right? Now, and then the question becomes, if you interpret it in a way I think you are interpreting predestination, the question is, what about those who are predestined? As you said, some that are born in non-Christian homes, never hear the gospel and all of that. Okay. So first, let me say on predestination, that passage actually is quite clear. You notice it says, those whom God foreknew, that is, those whom God had chosen before time, for their knowledge. The knowledge is, knowledge is the decisive knowledge I was talking about, the salvific knowledge. So God had known them, God knows them in time, but he had chosen them before time. That's what it says. And you see this parallel. Why did God choose Israel in Deuteronomy chapter 9? Nothing. He chose them from the foundation of the world. That's it. Revelation 13 verse 8 says that the Lamb was slain, that is, our atonement was provided before the foundation of the world. And so, then the question is, how can God choose people? And here's the point. If God chose nobody, how many people will be saved? How many people will be saved? If God chose nobody, because after the choice, he then predestines them somewhere. So the choice is for the people. The predestination is the destination. So for knowledge, predestination. There's a destination in time that God is taking, but he had prepared that destination before time. What is it? To be conformed to the image of his son. So as Christians, I was talking to a group of people yesterday. I said, what's your purpose in life? Your purpose is to be conformed to the image of his son. Then he tells us what the process is. A summarized version of the process in time. In time, God calls. That time when, and it's not that when people were preaching to you, and you are rejecting. It's the time when someone preached to you, or you heard a version, or you entered, a sort of level of grace that now all of a sudden your heart was open. They said when Paul was preaching to Lydia, God opened her heart in Acts chapter 16. All right? And so it's like, you didn't call yourself. God is the one that called us out of darkness into his light. He was now outworking his plan in time. And when he called you, that is when, by the Holy Spirit, that's when you then put your faith in him and you became born again. You got a new status, justified. You are now righteous, not by what you've done, but because of what God has done. And then after that, he starts to grow you from one image of glory to the other, until after, when Jesus returns, you are in full glory like Jesus Christ, the full confirmation. All right? That's what it is. And if you say, that doesn't seem fair, it's like when we drive on the road and beggars come. Have you ever given money to a beggar? Anybody here? Anyone? Okay. Now imagine, when you give a beggar, what happens normally? 5 more come. And let's say you give 1 more. And then the other 4 then say, that's not fair. Is it not fair? But actually, you aren't giving them because they deserved it per se. You are giving them out of your mercy. And so that's why in now chapter 9, it repeats what God said in Exodus, I will show mercy. I will have mercy upon whom I will have mercy. So God isn't being unfair. Actually, when God shows his mercy, he's being gracious because none of us deserve what he has given. Are we together? Now, you now get to the point of, what about those who have not been chosen? Here's what happens. God did not push them over the cliff. What was happening is that all of us were heading towards the cliff, and then God decided that not all of us will head over the cliff. Do you understand? So, whatever anyone gets at the end of eternity is because we have sinned, is because we deserve it. God is also a God of justice. Now, the question about those who never hear the gospel, the Bible talks about 4 types of unbelievers. 4 types. And they have different degrees. The worst of all the unbelievers is the false prophet. In fact, in 2 Peter, it says that the blackest of darkness is reserved for them. False prophets. People who know about God, they use the teachings of God to actually push people away from God. They are at the last level. The next one is the apostate. The apostate are those who were part of Christian communities, partly follow God, but actually never truly surrendered their life, never were born again. They experienced God's stuff. This you can find Hebrews chapter 6. And it then says that those people, right, at some point, they've seen everything about God, and eventually they still say, this Jesus isn't worth it. It's like crucifying Jesus a second time. Those people are level 3. They are apostate. They go and they said no more repentance for them. The second is those who hear the gospel and then say, nah, I don't. Jesus said, light has come into the world. Men chose darkness rather than light. You hear the gospel and then you decide not to give. But you've heard. They are level 2. And then who is level 1? Romans chapter 1 treats them, right? It is those whom, though have never heard the gospel, but still decide to be idolatrous. So they are not condemned on the basis of the fact that they rejected the gospel. They are condemned on the fact that God had revealed the invisible things about God were revealed through the visible things that are made. And yet, rather than serve the Creator, they chose to serve things that were made by men and all of those things. So those people are condemned on account of the revelation that they had and yet how they responded to it. And I think in Jesus teaches this in about Matthew 11, that almost says, even if God created a situation where they actually heard the gospel, they still won't repent because God knows all scenarios of all possibilities. And if that is blowing our mind and you say, yes, go and worship, that's why I'm not God. But Abraham says in Genesis chapter 8, shall not the God of all the earth do right? Will he not be righteous? God is righteous in all his ways. So sometimes that kind of thing seems troubling. But if we look at it really from divine standpoint, you see that God is not unfair. The only thing God is is that God is gracious. I hope you understand. So that's what I would say on that, and we can talk about it even more deeper. If Oluwa's question.
Okay, let me make an attempt at trying to answer the question with regards to miracles. Now, when we talk about miracles, often, and I think you blur the lines a little bit when we want to talk about miracles, because miracles could really refer to something that is happening that is actually supernatural, something that doesn't occur that is really natural. But sometimes when we talk about miracles in our lives, we actually talk about natural things, but things that we thought were very impossible, right? Maybe, for instance, a job that you didn't think there was any hope of you getting, that, eventually you are praying to God to actually get. And sometimes we term that to be a miracle. Now, when it comes to the supernatural type of miracles, the one that I believe that you're referring to when you say we see that in the Bible, we see that in the Old Testament, the kind that Jesus did in terms of when he walked the earth. Now, to be fair, those are not as common as we think that they are. Because they get reported frequently in the Bible, we think this thing was happening very, very often. It looks like it was happening quite often. But what was happening is that they don't report the empty spaces that you find between miracles. We only get told the number of miracles that happened. So the fact that we are in our time now and we are saying, we don't really see miracles happening the way we saw them happen in the Bible, that may not necessarily be the case. It may just be the fact that they didn't happen as often as we think that they did. And, that should at least lead us to not close our minds to the fact that miracles still occur today. But let me drive straight to the point that I think that you're asking, because you asked the question about yourself, how I will see miracles in my, if I'm praying for something and I don't see it. The one thing I would say is this: whether we agree or we disagree that miracles still happen today, one thing we can agree on as Christians is that it doesn't contribute to our spirituality in one way or the other, right? It is not because we receive a miracle of, say, divine healing, for instance, that means that we are not going to die again. Does that make sense? Eventually, we are still going to get maybe another illness that would even cause us to die or something like that. And so the point I'm trying to make is that the essence of what we are aiming for is really our relationship with God. And I think as long as we are able to focus on that, and you, along those lines, pray to God for whatever it is that you want, believing that He is the God that gives, right? Whatever we ask for, at least He hears us definitely. Expect your miracle. Now, whether it comes or not, now that you are able to be confident in the fact that the miracles are not the thing that drive our spirituality, then you are not necessarily driven by it. You don't say, because I didn't receive this miracle, there's something wrong with me or the other. At least you can then say, I trust God. I will continue to ask for, especially what, Femi's powerful sermon this morning. Continue to ask. Even if it feels like we've asked so long, we've been asking for the same thing over and over and again. It just behooves us to realize the God that you recognize as the same God of the Bible that did all those miracles in the Bible, that raised the widow's son up from the dead, is the same God that can do things for you. Yeah. But He chooses what to do and how to do it the way He has relationships with us. I can tell you there are many things that have happened to me, but not maybe many things that will fall in that category. But at least there are things that I have prayed for that I did not expect, even while praying, that I did not expect to come through. And, God showed up. And He shows up in His own way. And I'm sure it's related to Lola's question about my experiences about praying for something. I mean, I've prayed for many things before that didn't happen. I think what, for me personally, I would say it's just the fact that, okay, let me be honest. I have prayed for things that God answered my prayers. And to be very honest with you, those are the things that I hang on to. It is those things that make me come back to God, right? I am able to find a place whereby, and this is just personal, whereby if I pray for something and it doesn't necessarily come through, I don't dwell on it, but I'm able to dwell on the things that God has already done for me. There was something that Femi made, a point that Femi made in passing in the sermon, and I'm hoping that we are able to at least remember or latch onto it. He said that the woman, in the midst of her son being ill and dying, was experiencing the grace of God through that period. A grace of God that without, she would have died. Both her and her son would have died. Even when he was experiencing that. But the thing about us as human beings is that there is a tendency to focus on the negative, on the things that are bad that are happening to us. And we forget about the things that we actually have, or the things that God is doing for us. The answer to your question is, somehow by God's grace, I'm able to remember what God has done for me. And that is what keeps me focused.
maybe you should just keep going on with all the, I do want to say, and I want to tie some of those questions together, just not to improve on it, but just to give my own experiences, honestly, because I do think that there are different levels of quote-unquote miracles. So Ife has gone. But I was going to say, I think I have personally both experienced and seen. When I say see, I mean with my own eyes. Because, I've heard about miracles, I've heard witnesses. But me, personally, experienced the highest level, like the extraordinary, verified in this my Christian life, about four. About four. I know somebody who was in a bed, sickle cell, whatever. I went, prayed for her. She got up she had been there for 2 weeks. She was there, she was out the next day. I know Francis witnessed to this one, a prophecy that I gave about somebody who lost a job and said he won't lose his job. The office had closed down. And said he won't lose his job. And what happened? Actually, what then happened was that when they sent him his letter of being fired, they also sent him a letter of being hired because some other people had then taken over the office, and then they gave him the exact role that he had. So he went back to the same seat, went back to the same whatever. You right? I've not done one other one like that again before. I know somebody who was healed of AIDS. I know the person. Her name is Auntie Tekla. I know her. Right? I know this because the person that gave her the virus, HIV and all of that, was her husband. They were both tested, and the husband died. And she's still alive today. And that was about 18 years ago. Right? So I know, but I've known so many people that I prayed for that almost, they still died. And so that thing that Francis said is very true. When you read the Bible, do not see those kind of extraordinary miracles as things that were just happening all the time. They weren't. They just were not. They just really were not. Right? Even when we go to Elijah, you saw Elijah doing this miracle here. At some point, Elijah was running away from Jezebel. We'll get to that. You see, it's not just happening up and down like that. But those other levels, as Francis said, he's answering. You are seeing this job thing, that's saying whatever, it was extraordinary, and God came through. Personally, Lola, for me, some people know I go around with a neck brace. I have sleeping issues. I've not stopped praying. I've not stopped praying for those things. I still pray. Maybe sometimes the intensity of the prayer was more. And here's the point. In fact, some of those things, the intensity of prayer was more because the symptoms were worse. And what I have seen, some people say it's not a miracle if you've not been totally healed. I always tell those people, it's because you have not experienced it. I know what I went through when there was a day I was preaching here. People did not know why I was leaning. I was leaning on the pulpit. I just did like I'm leaning. You know why I was leaning? Because if I didn't lean, my legs were about to give way. My nerves had gotten so weak in that place that my legs couldn't hold. I couldn't stand. I couldn't do my buttons. I couldn't carry. Somebody brought their baby and I was trying to let me know the baby's too. I couldn't carry. Now I'm back to the point where I can do all of those things. I can stand, I can move. But I've not yet. So my point is, you tell me that it's not a miracle. That's your own problem. Do you understand? So there are levels of these things, and we see in those places. So I'm still waiting on God to physically heal me completely. But that hasn't happened. I've been in the desert. I felt twice that I'm going to die. And I found God. I first was angry, and then I found God in a much more sweeter and deeper way. And so, but it's not always easy. The first reaction to suffering, I won't lie, my first reaction to suffering is just shutting everything down and Netflixing and YouTubing until you say, wake up to your senses. You know what I was doing? I was denying. I was just leaving it. So I think that's what I'll say. I can't remember what your first question was. I think it's close to Jonah's zone. Eh? Oh, no, I'll come back to that. Rihanna, you said if you've gone through the desert experience and entered into a deeper place with God, but stop asking for the thing that took you there, is that necessarily evidence of cynicism? Is it okay to just move on from that thing and be willing to live without it? And here's a real important question. Is it okay to stop asking God for some stuff? Remember, Paul actually stopped asking because God told him. Here's what I can tell you, a distinction, Yona, is this. If you have no conviction like Paul had, that God said, don't worry, for this one, oh, my grace is sufficient for you. Don't stop asking. But if you ask as a result of conviction of satisfaction of this issue, like you are satisfied with the issue, you are able to move on, and you stop asking for that because you have this sense that God has said this is something you may deal with. And if I'm honest, the reason why I haven't often just asked for prayers for the healing and all of that is that I do have a deep sense that some of my illnesses are there because of certain things that God is doing me. I have some sense of that. I don't have a total conviction on it, so I still ask here and there. So if you do have a conviction that you have come to a place of satisfaction with this thing, it's not making you have any kind of anger towards God. You've not stopped praying. Let's say it was a physical thing and a physical illness. Like Paul, he didn't stop praying for healing for people and actually believing. So if you come to that place, yes, I'll say moving on is not born out of cynicism. But so I ask that we question our motive. Church discipline. Matthew 18, 1 Corinthians 5. Hebrews chapter 12. These are all the basis for what we call church discipline now. When you hear church discipline, depending on the background that some of you have come to, because we do practice church discipline in City Church, despite the head that Obi and PK have and all of that. Yeah, we do. We are embracing all of these things, but yet we do. Now, but it depends on what you understand as church discipline. Here's what we understand church discipline as. The Christian life, when you come into faith in Jesus Christ, you have become a disciple of Jesus. He's taking you to being fully conformed in him. But before you get there, he's taking you on a path. He wants you to grow. And what is discipleship in that regard? There are aspects of your life here and there that you either need to stop or you need to grow in. So when you listen to sermons constantly, do you know what's happening to you? You are being discipled. Somebody said that, her gospel community has made her grow so much. You know what's happening in the gospel communities? You are being discipled. You know what's happening in your holiday book reading, right? Some of you who read Competing Spectacles, right? And started seeing how you started getting small deliverance from your smartphone addiction. You are being discipled. Do you understand? Things that we have to grow in and things that we have to stop doing. However, the discipleship doesn't always take the same kind of form. Just like if you have a fever and you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, take this stress, go away. But if he says, it's a fever, take this medicine. Another one, he can say, actually, we are going to admit you. Another one says, we are going to have surgery. Do you understand? That is, the response depends on how egregious the illness is. And so some point when we get to certain points where we do what, because not all sin is of the same level. Right? Before everybody say everything is sin before, no. All sin are on the negative scale. All sin is on negative scale. But there's -1, there's -5, and there's -50. Do you understand? That's how we think about sin. Jesus Christ said there are weightier matters of the law. Okay, so you get to a point where you have an egregious sin, like a sexual sin, or like a fraud sin, or certain things. It shows that you have the state of your heart is actually really, really bad. So some point we say, no, we are going to admit you. No, we are going to do surgery. It is still discipleship. The aim is not to just punish you, what kind of bad person you are. No, the aim is to bring you back. It's restorative. And so we may say, you used to serve publicly in church. No, you need to reflect, go back to see where you are falling. I've seen. Can we pray? No. But Jesus Christ forgives, and he forgives. But you actually have to know where that sin is for you to really experience that forgiveness and also that brokenness that is there, so that you grow out of it. So we then say, come around. We'll meet with you every week. Meet with this person. We're going to go through that sin. We're going to do some stuff that you are not going to do. And you're going to report. You're going to read this book. And honestly, I've done with a lot of people in church, right? My wife and I have done with people in church. Some other people have done. I think you've done a number. And to the glory of God, It doesn't always start well in the first couple of weeks. You are still dealing with the person. But to the glory of God, I can tell you that I don't know of anybody that has gone through that hasn't come out in a better way. And so now, sorry, I want to explain church discipline very well. The last one, Jesus said, go and talk to the person, go and take them to the church, do all of those things. But if somebody is unrepentant, at that point, the leaders of the church would say something like this: we want you to be restored. But at this point, you are so far away that you are now polluting the church purity. You are affecting others. You are damaging other people. We have tried, and we have tried, and we have tried, and we have tried. We haven't given hope on you, but we have given hope in the fact that God is using us to help you. That's exactly what it is. So we say, no, you are going to be excommunicated from this community. At that point, we are not saying that the person is not a Christian. We don't know what's in the person's heart. But what we are saying is, there is one last step for that person. It is outside the church. It is God gives that person towards Satan. And that may mean that God can allow Satan to afflict the person. That may mean that God allows, like the prodigal, the person goes to the end. And sometimes it is when, there are people I've prayed for and I told, some people that this person needs a tragedy in their life to be able to open them up. And so that's what it is. I notice what Paul says, so that the person, even though their flesh is being destroyed, their soul will be saved. So that's why we excommunicate. It's not that we give up on the person. We give up on our ability to help the person. Now, then Jesus then says this, and I want us to understand. He said, treat them as sinners and publicans. And there is a sense in which I would say when you then take Paul's own, he then, don't have drink with them and all of that. I do think that is temporary. That there's an immediate sense of the people need to feel the pain. But then when you then add Jesus' words, when Jesus says, treat them as a publican, treat them as sinners, how many of you have friends that are unbelievers? But you still have dinner with them. You still have lunch. You still go out with them. But there's a way, hopefully, some of you need to hear this one, because some of us, we don't know how to relate with them very well. We do the same sin with them. We do the same, and we say that it is relational evangelism. We're always connecting with them, but we never bring the word of God to them. We're always saying we'll connect them to the God's word, but actually they connect us to the world. But if you do it well, you actually maintain your Christian identity with them while showing them the love of God, but you don't allow them to affect you negatively. But you relate with them. And so I believe that in Matthew 18, when Jesus is saying treat them as publican, he's not saying forever never engage with them. So some of you here may have a different relationship with some of those people that have been excommunicated. You may have a deeper relationship, and so you are actually checking a little bit more regular than some other people. I hope we understand. So the rules of engagement, I would say that in the immediate, they have to feel that sense of weight. You are withholding stuff from them, not because you don't like them, because you love them, and you want them to feel that sense of pain. But after, James says that whoever restores a sinner from their way has done a great thing. James chapter 5, all right? So that's what I would say on that. I think we have finished the question. Oh, Obina. Oh, wow. What was your question? What's the question?
About LGBT marriages.
Yeah, we don't have same-sex marriage in Nigeria now. Not marriage. We have not validated marriage. It's against the law. Okay, so how do we relate this with Muslims? All right. First of all, you should not
No, it's not.
You had two questions.
Yeah, so the question was, how do we attend? I think your first question was, do we attend those kinds of marriages?
Uh-huh.
And then you were trying to say, on the basis of the answer to that, how do we square that answer with attending Muslim marriages?
That's the question I was about to answer. How do you know? Let me wait now. I was going to say we should not. If you have a Muslim, I don't believe you should attend the Muslim's marriage to a second person. I don't believe you should. I think you can. Well, Dad, you want to ask a further question on that?
What of
The third.
First.
I am going.
Come back to that.
What's wrong with you people now? Allow me to get to where I'm going. That was not a loss of temper, by the way. This is, I'm lamenting the situation of. But I believe you should. I've attended a Muslim wedding of the first. Here's the difference between a Muslim wedding, a Hindu wedding, and an LGBT wedding. When two Muslims get married, man and wife, when two secular people get married, man and wife, they are not violating what God has established and defined as marriage. You see, when Adam and Eve first got married, Adam and Eve were not Christians, quote unquote. Adam and Eve were believers in God, but Adam and Eve were God's creation. And it's through Adam and Eve all of us have come. So that marriage between Adam and Eve was what we know is not a special ordinance of the church. It is a creation ordinance for all of God's creation. Because at that point, Adam and Eve were representing all of God's creation. So even though somebody may use a false religion to actually bring two people together, the result of what they are doing is not against God's design. Are we together? But when you bring two people who have the same sex, now, even from the creation ordinance standpoint, they are violating it. And then the second thing I would say was always, Jesus said, one man, one wife permanently until one of them dies or there's a divorce or what have you. Then you can marry somebody else. But when a Muslim then takes one man and one wife and then a second wife, he is then violating God's order. At that point, it's not about there's the religion, but that the design is still according to God's order. But in this one, in those two that I've just said, an LGBT one and taking a second and third wife, it's not just the religion, it is the design as well, is a violation of it. And so I don't think we should attend. Should you show them love? You better. You better. Right? You better. That, it says, owe no man nothing except the debt of love. Now, how do we show it? As far as we're going to say, like, there are different ways. I can write a wonderful letter to my LGBT friend who is getting married to an LGBT person and say, I am happy that you are coming to a place where you are happy. There are ways you can. It's true now. It's true. There are ways you can sidestep. No, but if you see your friend that is happy, won't you be happy in some sense? Now, you can be unhappy for the longer sense, but you can identify with them. Do you understand? So there are ways you can identify with a situation without necessarily endorsing it. I remember the NSAS stuff, right? And I spoke a lot to the people that the NSAS, the protests and the way it was going on. I said for me, I identified with the emotion of it. I disagreed with how it was being taken. So you can identify with an aspect of something without endorsing the entire thing. And so you look for creative ways, I would say, to show love for your friend whilst you also demonstrate the conviction that you have towards your friend. Because in both instances, you are showing them love. One of them, they can feel the love. The other one, they don't like it, but that is actually what they need. You must show love to God first. And in showing love to God, you are showing love to other people. No, there's no other. You can't. Oh. No, give me a mic. Obina, don't try and bring in a second question.
It's on what you said. In a sense, wouldn't attending it, even though you don't necessarily support it, be also a way of expressing love?
I think by attending is a powerful. Here's what I'm not going to do on a Friday. Do you know what I'm not going to do with a friend, a Muslim friend that I really like? Here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to attend their mosque with them. I'm not going to the mosque. And most of my Muslim friends will not come to church. I hope they come to church. I will invite them. But they may be trying to show love. Me, I'm trying to get them converted. I can't show love by attending because what I'm doing is by attending that service, I'm actually, my attendance is a strong sense of endorsement. It's not just, I don't endorse it in my heart. I'm actually a witness to it. There's a reason why marriage is personal, but it's never private. We call witnesses. The witnesses are saying, I saw this thing, and there's a measure of endorsing it. Franco, I don't know if you have anything to.
No. I was just going to say that, in those kinds of relationships, you have to, in some way, tell yourself define the purpose of your relationship with people, like with anybody really, not necessarily whether they're LGBTQ or not. And in so doing, when you say I want to attend this marriage, let the definition of whatever the purpose of your friendship with them drive that. If it is really to maintain a loving relationship with this person, there are many other ways besides attending the wedding, the marriage, that you can do that.
I'll just end with this, and it extends beyond LGBT people. It extends to all our unbelieving friends. Please stop being an undercover Christian. You know what an undercover Christian is? You want to show that we can relate with the world. I'm not those kind of Christians that are holier than thou. I can do this. I have liberty to drink. I can go to this place, this nightclub. I can do all of these things. And you never actually talk about what it is that you believe and why you believe it. Tolumudi was here, my pastor friend that preached for us, and he said, many times we don't say it's because of Christ. We say, why don't you do this thing? Yeah, I don't really feel like it. Why aren't you sleeping? You see, celibacy is a value that I just have. Do you understand? We go super generic. So we have been going on with this friend in this super generic way for 2 years. The friend drops the LGBT bomb. You have never discussed it before. You now say, I don't attend. And then the person says that you don't love me. Of course. Because they never understood. But if you demonstrated conviction and yet love, and they've accepted it, by the time you are not showing up, it is not news to them. Because they already know your views. And so a lot of times we find these things challenging because we've withheld the explicitness of who we are for too long. And we've not found creative ways of being explicit and yet being inclusive as well. The Lord bless you all.